in Jeremiah chapter 33. He is speaking about a restoration of normal everyday life. Now, this is at the time when they're in the midst of turmoil, about to be invaded by Nebuchadnezzar's army and be heading off to an exile that would last over 70 years. So he's speaking that there will be a time in the land of Judah when there shall once more be heard the voice of myrrh, the voice of gladness, and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride. He's speaking of the restoration, not simply of daily life, of the Davidic line, where he says, "A righteous branch will sprout from the line of David." Isaiah writes, "A shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." So we have an image of hope and unexpected joy, a new life springing up from what looks like a dead stump. A righteous branch will spring up. It's a word of hope, but it isn't that naive hope. Jeremiah wasn't looking through rose-colored glasses. He'd been imprisoned by his own government. Why? Because he kept prophesying doom. So the cancel culture of those days were trying to cancel him out. Any different than today, here and throughout the world? No. A righteous branch will spring up. So these words of tenacious hope are spoken to counteract all of the life-sapping, despair-inducing evidence to the contrary. A righteous branch will spring up. That proclamation is given by preachers today, or should be, but not just by them, but by all who are in Christ. For all believers are called to speak a word of hope and promise in a world that is filled with fear, uncertainty, and despair. So in this season of Advent, we speak words of hope right in the midst of darkness. Light is going to break in. In the midst of despair, hope will erupt. A branch will sprout. Now, the complete fulfillment of God's promises has not yet happened, but it is coming. So we celebrate God's incarnation, and we wait. The Lord himself will descend from heaven with the cry of a command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the sound of the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we, those believers that are still alive at that time, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. It's from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And then at his second coming, every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth are going to mourn over him. For he says that I am the Alpha and the Omega, who is, who was, and who is to come, the Almighty.